Good morning. How are you doing? I wonder if it's okay to ask you some questions before we continue. What have you been up to so far today? What have you appreciated of your day? What might you have taken for granted? How can we approach this moment that we have together really well? If we were to treat it as a microcosm of the whole of our day, how would we like to be within these moments? What if you breathe in and out nice and deeply for a few moments now? What begins to shift in you as you do? What begins to settle? What do you feel in your body? How do you think God approaches this time that we have together? What kind of attention does God bring to this space? What kind of presence might you imagine that God has beyond the presence that we can only fallibly sense? And what might be flowing between us, within us, around us, through us, even now? We stand on holy ground, don't we? And we hold with us that mix of emotions that so many of you have mentioned in your RSVPs on the Soulful Steps email series. Emotions of both joy and grief, emotions of struggle and elation, of lightness and heaviness, so many different things that we are learning with a depth of maturity to hold together at this time. And here, though our connection is only virtual, there is a connection through God, with God, that is more real than anything. And even though we don't always feel it, we can believe it, can't we? Because we are in God and God is in us. And there is something about that sense of communion that is greater than the whole of the constituent parts. It moves us, it shifts us, a little bit like the connection that we feel when our bare foot just touches the freshly mown grass, and there is a connection that goes beyond the merely physical. Or when the sight of the sunrise blesses our awakening eyes. There was an amazing sunrise this morning that I was lucky enough to see. Or when the smell of sea air, which I haven't smelled for ages now, just touches our nostrils, fills us, fills our lungs, fills our soul, and we breathe deep of something more. Let's just breathe deep of that something more for a moment as we imagine just breathing in lungfuls of sea air. We connect as loving arms connect and wrap around each other. So the other day I managed to go out for a walk that was slightly longer than usual, and I managed to go up St Catherine's Hill in Winchester, which you may have climbed with me on a retreat in the past. It's a lovely place, and I came back with 3 very, very simple observations, reflections, which I wanted to share with you now. The first is that the hill is steep to climb, and you really get out of breath, and it's quite hard work going up. And the Orthodox Christians, I believe, have a saying that goes, our suffering can bring us closer to God, so long as we take our suffering to God. And I love kind of imagining as I walk up that hill that it's a prayer that takes me beyond words. Sometimes we have no words for the perplexity and bewilderment of the circumstances we find ourselves in. And right now might be one of those circumstances. So I would love you to imagine, just for 10 seconds or so, walking up a hill that you really love, that's steep. Just picture yourself in your mind's eye walking up that hill. And as you do so, as you feel the burn in your legs, just offering this as a prayer beyond words that brings your suffering to God and brings you closer to God in the process. Second, there is a wonderful old labyrinth at the top of the hill, which some of you will have walked with me. It's a lovely labyrinths are wonderful representations, if you like, of the path of life and faith. There's a windy path that takes you into a centre and then back again, and it symbolises, if you like, our journey towards God at the centre of all things, and then back out again, having had that kind of encounter. And I was walking it the other day and just reminded of the many twists and turns there are in life that we're experiencing at the moment. And in particular, there's a moment that often causes people frustration walking this labyrinth in Winchester, which is you almost get to the centre and you think you've arrived, and then just at the last moment, it pulls you away again, and suddenly you're within moments, you're kind of at the farthest diagonal, you're kind of at the farthest diagonal point of the labyrinth to the centre. And I just thought, it struck me that it feels like that at the moment. Perhaps we feel as though we should have been kind of almost getting to the end of this, and yet we find ourselves right back out again and not knowing quite where we are within this whole kind of lockdown and pandemic, and it can feel frustrating and as though we're a long way from anywhere. The wonderful thing with the labyrinth is that even if when you're going in towards the centre, even if the path seems to be taking you away from that centre, nevertheless each step you take along the path takes you one step closer towards it. And I hope that you might be able to hold on to that at this moment as we continue along the path, trusting God on this path of life and faith that takes us through this particular moment in our lives and in history. I love to, when I walk that path, as I did the other day, just speak the words of Psalm 16, which says, "You will make known to me the path of life," which is a lovely set of words. And I just shorten that a little bit just to say, make known to me the path of life. And I'd love to invite you just to say that with me a few times over now, imagining perhaps that you're walking a windy path or even a labyrinth as you go. Make known to me the path of life. 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 Just imagine putting one foot in front of the other, just in a steadiness and in faith and assurance that even as we walk towards the center, towards God at the center, we walk with God. It's a wonderful mystery. And third, coming down the hill, on the other side of the hill, is a wonderful set of steps that kind of curves around, hugs the hill and takes you down. And just when you're coming down to the set of steps, it's brilliant because you can only see 2 or 3 steps kind of just curving down, and you can't see where the path goes from there, which is a bit like kind of the path that we're on again, isn't it? And yet when you step onto that path of stairs, very soon you're suddenly looking out over this gorgeous vista, and just the whole vista opens up, and you can look down on hovering birds of prey sometimes. And the other day the air was filled with the sound of skylarks, and there were screeching swifts just wheeling around. It was amazing, and there were just beautiful vivid clouds in the sky, which reminded me as I went that we live within this vast ocean of air as if it's God's love itself. And you might like just again just take some lungfuls in and just return your attention to your breath for a moment. Getting down to the bottom of the path and looking back is this wonderful pausing moment when actually we can look back and see where we've come from. And I just wanted us to do this for a moment, because so often we're kind of looking forward, slightly anxiously anticipating, trying to keep going. There are moments to pause and look back, and this might be one of them. Certainly within our British or our English lockdown, there is this sense of kind of moving from one transition into another, which feels quite confusing at the moment. And I know in various parts of the world there is this transition. So actually just pausing for a moment to look back at where we've been is a good thing. I know it's not always easy to see where perhaps God is with us within the disorientation, within the shock, within the struggle. But looking back sometimes it's a little bit easier to discern. I love the words of Psalm 23, but sometimes I find it easier to think about them in retrospect. Those lovely lines, surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, is such a wonderful kind of expression from David, such a wonderful promise in a sense. But sometimes it's good just to look back and see, okay, that's where you were with me. That's how it was working out. So just for a moment, I'd love to invite you to think about one thing that you have learned from this journey, one thing that you've experienced so far that you can take with you, that you can put in your backpack, that can help you as you prepare for the next leg of the journey. It might have been a word of encouragement, a moment of clarity, something you pieced together within the written reflections. It might be a moment of reconnection or wonder, or sitting within the pain or the joy of it. Just a few seconds now of reflection for yourself to recollect something that is of worth that you can take with you. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. You are with me. You are with me. Shall we say the Lord's Prayer together? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me for this midday moment live. Keep going. Keep stopping. May we indeed find communion with God, with each other, with this day, with this life. Just as the barefoot loves to touch the grass, and as the sunrise loves to bless our awakening eyes, as the smell of salty sea air fills our nose and lungs and souls, may we be filled with you, O Lord, and find ourselves in you, wrapped in arms of love that reach beyond this great divide. Peace be with you. Go well, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.